we were about a day or two late on the Saban retirement pod. We were a day late on the announcement of his replacement. And, of course, it is the new Alabama coach, former Washington coach, Kalen DeBoer, who's been successful everywhere he's gone, been successful at NAIA at that level, successful at Fresno State, and it's been successful at Washington with 3 losses and a national title game appearance. And he is heading to Alabama. It does sound like he was one of their top candidates. And, I figured, with me and Matt doing this one, I had to, because I mentioned on the last pod, you were the one that let me know Saban was retiring, and you legit broke the news to me, and I thought you were lying. And then literally a second later, I was like, oh, here's the ESPN notification.
Well-renowned, college football insider Matt Mormann, of course, having the scoop for this one. It was interesting though, for sure, that Nick Saban retiring. And I don't know, Ryan, I feel like this, I guess it makes some sense that a guy at a Washington level would then be the guy that goes to the Alabama level. But I don't know. I feel like whoever replaced Nick Saban was kind of going to be a dead man walking a little bit, like how much success do you have to have at Alabama in order for your run to be looked at successfully, right? Like you can't, we see it with Ryan Day right now, right? At the Ohio State, where it's like he's beaten everybody except for Michigan a couple times, and it's like they want to run him out of town. Ryan, do you think we're going to be looking at a similar kind of run here?
I mean, it's entirely possible. I mean, we know the expectations, what they are at Alabama, and Saban has built them up to be that way over the last couple years. And, I do wonder, I think I was reading this in an article or something, or somebody pointed out that sometimes it's not the guy that is hired after a legend that comes in and does a great job. It's the guy after the guy that comes in and gets the ship rolling again and everything's good. One thing I thought about with this is that, with the 12-team playoff coming up, there is going to be there's going to be more margin for error. So, like, Alabama can have, 2 losses, I feel like, and can still find themselves in the 12-team playoff and get one of those at-large bids. So, I think they'll be fine there, but I think Bama fans will be like, 2 losses? No, we want 1 or 0 or better. We want those types of seasons. But I will say he has done well at everywhere he's been. He's done really well. I will say he kind of reminds me, and I mean, of course, like, Ryan, you're going to tie this back to UT, aren't you? Like, yep, but there's some similarities. Josh Heupel, kind of a similar type of philosophy as far as their offenses, how they're run, put up a lot of points, efficient defense, a little bit of a concern on that side of the ball, and also recruiting. Now, Heupel has done a little bit better each and every year as far as defense and recruiting. Recruiting classes have seen a bump up. I believe they're like top 15, top 10 right now. And the defenses have improved. And there's one thing in Alabama is that they have good guys on defense. Now, I think they've lost a couple guys in the portal that have moved out, because I think there's a defensive backs coach that went to Georgia, so they're going to poach some of their guys. That's just the college game. So I wonder, I think with this first year or so, I'm curious how about a couple things. How he's going to do with Jalen Milroe, because he's different from Michael Penix. With the playoff games kind of showing that, how is he going to adapt to Milroe, or is he going to say Milroe, hey, this is a system, you need to learn this because we're not going to adapt to you? And I think he can get very dangerous with something like that. So maybe he does that in this first year or so. But I think with these Saban guys, I think he is going to win. And I think, at Washington, he won with a lot of the previous coaches' guys and coached them up and did really well. Now, I can imagine that here, but then he's going to have to go recruit and get his own guys. And what is that going to look like? Is he going to have high-level defenses here? Is he going to be able to recruit the South really well? Because that's a kind of key concern. And I think I pointed out Friday, the Oregon coach, Dan Lanning, has experience in the South, and you can't discount that. Worked at Alabama, worked at Georgia. I think that's something to be concerned about, is how his defenses are going to be. And listen, we've seen Bama with excellent passing games. We've seen that before. And so I think, he'll probably bring that back, and they'll probably get in some star receivers because they've been lacking. Because I know you looking at the NFL draft, there's been a lack of star Alabama receivers that have come out in the last couple seasons.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the last big one was the Waddle Smith year, right? But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
over those last couple of years, yeah, for sure not. My big question for you, though, I've got two. This one first, though, Ryan. I feel like with Alabama under Saban, when you went to a 12-team playoff, they were going to get it no matter what. Like, the benefit of the doubt was going to be there. Do you think committee will still give them a bit of a benefit of the doubt tiebreaker, right? Like if they're kind of stuck between two teams, does Alabama legacy still carry enough water if it's not Nick Saban in order to kind of be that tiebreaker?
That's a good question because I can apply that with recruiting too. I wonder how much of the Alabama brand is because of Saban. And listen, Saban is still going to be around Bama. Like I think that he's got an office up at Bryant Denny Stadium, so he's he's not going to be away from the program. So he's like, hey, we can call Coach Saban to come down here and get you settled real quick if you don't watch it. But I think there. I'm curious to see if that will hold any weight. With no Saban there, will they be more? Or will they want to pick Bama, or will they want to go to another team? And so it does. I really want to see if there's any separation of the Saban brand and the Alabama brand, or if they're still one the same. Saban made the
Mm-hmm.
Alabama brand elevate, and maybe that's just it. But I'm curious to see if there's any separation at all, or if there's not. That's one thing
My,
I'm curious about. And yeah,
my other question was, are a lot of Saban's assistants sticking around?
I mentioned one guy going from Alabama to Georgia. I think I think DeBoer is bringing his offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb, good first name, and also a good offensive coordinator. He's worked with them a whole lot. And in fact, Bama tried to poach him last year, so there is some known quantity with him and Bama. So I imagine that he's going to bring him in. I don't know who all else he's going to bring in. Maybe he's going to bring in a lot of guys that he's been around with. And I saw they hired a defensive coordinator who was South Alabama. I forget if he was the head coach there or not, but he's the new DC. So I don't know. I do also wonder, with the coordinator Grubb, if he has another awesome year at Bama, does he get looks at head coaching jobs? Because that could definitely be the case. Maybe there's a job out west that he likes. It's unfortunate that he didn't grab any of these jobs out west because this Bama hiring DeBoer has been like a domino effect where it's affected Washington, who hired Arizona's coach, Jed Fish, who now Arizona hired San Jose State's coach. And so now San Jose is looking for a coach. So it's gone all the way to San Jose State. So I think he'll bring some of his own guys, but the recruiting of the South, I think, is going to be really kind of crucial for them. There's a reason why I was kind of thinking like it could be Lanning, it could be Steve Sarkisian at Texas, or why I put my money on Lane Kiffin is because those guys know the expectations and know the recruiting of that area. And that's another thing. The expectations, that's going to be he I'm pretty sure in his press conference he knows about the expectations there, but I don't know. He's going to find out here pretty quickly because I looked at Bama's schedule and I think Peter put it in the group chat. Their first SEC game is against Georgia
Oh,
in September. So talk about a way to get your SEC, season open. So
welcome to
you
the
got
SEC,
Georgia.
kid.
I know, right? And you're going to have to go against
Ooh.
Georgia, who, it's been a while since they played in the regular season. So right off the bat, you got to go to Tennessee. You do have a home game against Mizzou, and they're bringing back a lot of their guys. And then, and that's October. Then you got to go to LSU. You got to go to Oklahoma, and then you have a home game against Auburn. So it's going to be a rough first season in conference for him, and he's going to have to get it right here pretty quickly, or else Bama will make sure about they will let him hear about it if they do not like what he is bringing. So I'm really curious about a lot of things here. I do think it's a good hire, but I mentioned it on the pod Friday. I think there's sort of a path to be cleared here. there's no Saban anymore in the SEC. So I feel like there's a little bit of a path cleared here. You're waiting to see on how this hire does. I think there's SEC teams like LSU, like Tennessee, like Georgia, who I feel like Georgia's got to be feeling pretty good about it right now, being the new kind of Alabama kind of. And like, hey, Saban has left. This new guy, he is pretty good. But, if you're Georgia, you saw how Michigan's defense did against his offense. Like, well, we can do that easily too. We got the guys on defense to be able to do that. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of teams in the SEC that like, yeah, this guy's good, but I feel like there's a path cleared for us to make it to the championship game with no divisions now.